In 72 hours, one airstrike knocked out 20% of Europe's gas supply, sent oil past $110 a barrel, and pushed a US president to threaten the destruction of the world's largest gas field from a social media app. This is how it happened. Somewhere over the Persian Gulf, a formation of Israeli F-35 Ayadir stealth fighters drops below radar coverage and begins their targeting run. Their objective? South Pars, Phase 17, Phase 18, Phase 19 of the largest single natural gas reservoir ever discovered on planet Earth. What happens in the next 72 hours will send energy markets into convulsions, drag three Gulf monarchies into a conflict they desperately try to avoid, and put a sitting US president on the brink of threatening to annihilate an entire nation's energy infrastructure from a social media post. Let's break this down, because the physics, the geography, and the economics here are staggering. South Pars sits in the shallow waters of the Persian Gulf, roughly 100 kilometers off Iran's Bushehr coastline. It is not simply a gas field, it is the gas field, the single largest natural gas reserve in human history, shared along a submerged geological formation with Qatar, which calls its side the North Field. Here is the number you need to understand the stakes. South Pars contains an estimated 51 trillion cubic meters of recoverable natural gas. That is roughly 40% of Iran's total gas reserves and accounts for the majority of Iran's energy export revenue. Iran pumps approximately 800 million cubic meters per day from this field under normal operations. Those figures are now past tense. The physics of what an airstrike does to a gas processing facility is brutal and precise. When a precision munition, likely a Spice 2000 or a US-supplied GBU-39 small-diameter bomb, hits a gas compression or liquefaction train, it doesn't just start a fire. It creates a BLEVE, a boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. Liquefied natural gas under pressure, suddenly exposed to heat and atmospheric rupture, expands at roughly 600 times its liquid volume in under 1 second. The resulting pressure wave can destroy reinforced structures within a 500-meter radius. Fires at these facilities burn at over 1,800 degrees Celsius and cannot simply be extinguished. They must be starved of fuel, a process that can take days. Iranian state media confirmed that fires broke out at processing facilities in Asaluye, the coastal hub that handles South Pars output. The IRGC-affiliated Tasnim news agency said facilities were damaged, though the full extent remained unclear. Smoke visible on satellite imagery told a different story. Within hours of the South Pars strike, Tehran did what Tehran does when cornered. It escalated. The IRGC issued an extraordinary public statement, naming specific civilian energy infrastructure across 3 Gulf nations as direct and legitimate targets and ordered evacuations. The target list was not vague. It was surgical in its specificity. Saudi Arabia's Samref refinery and Jubail petrochemical complex, the UAE's Al Hosn gas field, and Qatar. Qatar, which had done everything short of hosting Iranian diplomats to stay out of this war, faced strikes on both its Ras Laffan refinery and the Mesaid petrochemical complex. Within hours, the missiles flew. Ras Laffan Industrial City, the single largest LNG export hub on the planet, the facility that keeps the lights on in Germany, Japan, South Korea, and the United Kingdom, took ballistic missile hits. Qatar Energy confirmed in an official statement extensive damage warranting emergency response deployment. Fires burned inside what is arguably the most critical piece of energy infrastructure on Earth, outside of Saudi Aramco's Abqaiq facility. Then the UAE's Habshan gas facility took hits. Then Kuwait's Mina Al Ahmadi refinery, one of the largest in the Middle East, was struck by drones. And through the night of March 18th into the 19th, the strikes continued. In 18 hours, Iran had declared war on the Gulf's entire energy export architecture. This is where the conflict stops being abstract and starts hitting your wallet. And if you're in the UK or continental Europe, it's hitting hard. Before the war began on February 28th, Brent crude set at roughly $71 per barrel. As of Thursday morning, March 19th, Brent is trading above $110 a barrel, an increase of over 50% in 3 weeks. West Texas Intermediate surged as much as 3.3% in a single Asian trading session to $98.60 per barrel. Europe's natural gas benchmark on ICE Futures Europe jumped 6% in a single day on Wednesday alone. Here is the mechanism. The Strait of Hormuz, a 33-kilometer-wide choke point between Iran and Oman, handles approximately 20% of all global oil and LNG supply. Iran has been applying military pressure on that corridor since the war began. Now add the destruction of Ras Laffan, the primary export terminal for Qatari LNG, that supplies roughly 20% of Europe's gas imports. Total Middle East oil output losses from the conflict are estimated at between 7 and 10 million barrels per day. Between 7% and 10% of all global demand wiped off the market simultaneously. The price transmission to European households is not linear. It is exponential at the margins. Wholesale gas prices surging 6% in a day translate to retail energy bills that could rise 15 to 25% over the following billing cycle, as hedging contracts expire and spot prices feed through. The German foreign minister has already warned of a crisis of the gravest order if supply chain disruptions continue. That is diplomatic language for people will struggle to heat their homes. Qatar has suspended LNG production, not throttled it, suspended it. Then came the post. At some point on Wednesday US time, President Donald Trump logged onto Truth Social and issued what may be the most remarkable threat from a sitting US president in the era of social media warfare. The text, in essence, if Iran continues attacking Qatar's energy facilities, the United States will, and this is a direct paraphrase, massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field, with an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. Simultaneously, Trump distanced himself and the United States from the original Israeli strike, stating publicly that the US knew nothing about Israel's attack on South Pars, a claim that immediately collided with a report from the Jerusalem Post, citing an Israeli official who said the attack was in fact coordinated with Washington. The contradiction remains unresolved. What Trump's threat actually represents, stripped of its rhetoric, is a deterrence ultimatum directed at Iranian decision-makers. The logic: stop attacking Ras Laffan, or we destroy the very resource Iran used as its pretext for retaliation. It is mutually assured economic destruction, the energy equivalent of pointing a gun at your own hostage. The strategic problem is that the threat may be self-defeating. If the US destroys South Pars entirely, it removes approximately 40% of Iran's gas production. But it also guarantees a permanent energy crisis across Asia and Europe, as the broader Gulf supply architecture continues to burn. You cannot threaten to blow up a gas field and simultaneously promise stable energy markets. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan said it plainly on Thursday. What little trust there was has been completely shattered, on multiple levels. He added that the patience being exhibited is not unlimited. Qatar ordered Iranian security and military attachés to leave the country. A nation that shares the world's largest gas field with Iran, that has historically played the role of Gulf mediator, that once hosted Iranian diplomatic offices as a strategic hedge, is now expelling Iranian military personnel from its soil.
The UAE called Iran's strikes on its Habshan facility a terrorist attack. 3 Gulf Cooperation Council states, simultaneously, within 24 hours, have reached the conclusion that Iran cannot be managed, appeased, or negotiated with in real time. That is a geopolitical shift that will outlast this conflict, regardless of how it ends. The war entered its 3rd week, having crossed 2 thresholds that analysts once considered red lines: strikes on nuclear-adjacent infrastructure near Bushehr, and now direct attacks on the Gulf's civilian LNG export architecture. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively choked. Between 7 and 10 million barrels per day remain offline. Brent crude is above $110. European natural gas spot prices are spiking. And the most powerful man in the world is threatening thermobaric destruction of the world's largest gas field from a social media application. Europe has said, in the words of Reuters, not our war. But at $110 oil and suspended Qatari LNG exports, the war is already in every European living room, every German factory, every British petrol station. The physics of a gas field strike, the mathematics of commodity pricing, and the geopolitics of Gulf deterrence have collapsed into a single 72-hour news cycle. And we are only on day 20.